This is the place where Thomas Becket was murdered.
Very soon after the murder, people came here on pilgrimage, but also seeking healing, and there were miracles reported.
This cathedral has been founded since 597.
Thomas Becket became known as the healer of the worthy good. So if you behaved yourself, you had good chances to get healed.
I'll keep that in mind. There are so many hidden gems around this cathedral that I'm really looking forward to exploring. Hello and welcome to today's episode. My name is Niall McDonagh and today I am in the southeast of England in Kent. As you can see behind me, the Anglican Cathedral in the middle of the city, which has a very, very rich history. It is of course the place in 1170 where the Catholic Archbishop of Canterbury was murdered. Yes, Thomas Becket. But why was Becket murdered? And what exactly happened? Let's go inside to find out more. So here I am in the nave, which is the main body of the cathedral. And it's absolutely amazing to think that this cathedral has been founded since 597. And as soon as I walk through the doors here, it really does have that wow factor. Because when you look around at these high ceilings, it is absolutely breathtaking. And to think of all the history that has taken place right here. Of course, it used to be Catholic. The famous incident with Thomas Becket, up until the Protestant Reformation in the 1500s, when of course it became Anglican. There are so many hidden gems around this cathedral that I'm really looking forward to exploring. Pilgrims have been making their way here for hundreds of years. But why do they come here? Well, I'm about to meet Canon Andrew to find out exactly why. Canon Andrew, thank you so much for your time. Here we are at Canterbury Cathedral. Architecturally, it is absolutely amazing. I'm really looking forward to discovering its beauty. Before I do that, would you mind sharing with me some of the cathedral's history?
Yes, well, this has been a site of pilgrimage for many, many hundreds of years. Martyrs like St. Alphege, who died in 1012, is buried here. And of course, this is the place where Thomas Becket was murdered. And so we have the story of St. Thomas where he was buried, and his shrine existed here for many, many years, and a place for pilgrims to come.
So, Canon Andrew, what year was the cathedral built?
Well, 597 is the date when it was originally founded. And that's the story of St. Augustine coming here as well and founding the place with he was sent over by the Pope Gregory to Canterbury to kind of Christianize the English, as you said. So, and he founded a small group of monastic monks here in this place, and the first Archbishop of Canterbury.
Okay, so a monastic community used to live here?
Yes, this was part of the community. There's also part of the site that we have, which you share with the UNESCO World Heritage Site, which is St. Augustine's Abbey, just over the road from here as well. And that's where they would have actually lived. But this was a site of one of the first churches that was part of that community.
Okay, and who was the first Archbishop here?
St. Augustine, who came over. So he's the guy who was sent over, reluctantly, the story goes, by Pope Gregory. And he used to write lots of letters back to Pope Gregory saying why he wasn't suitable to come over. But, you know, Pope Gregory encouraged him and supported him through a series of letters. He founded the church here in Canterbury.
Brilliant. And then Thomas Becket came here in what year?
Well, he actually was Archbishop a little bit before 1170. And of course, 1170 is the date when he was murdered here by the story when King Henry allegedly went and said, who will rid me of this turbulent priest? And the drunken knights came over and murdered him. The story itself is recorded well, and one of the monks who was a witness to that was a first-hand witness of what happened. So the story of Thomas is actually crucial to the life of our community here today.
Would you mind sharing with me then, Canon Andrew, the Reformation time here?
Well, just up there in the Trinity Chapel would have been the site where Thomas's bones were translated. He was buried straight away after his murder, his assassination, in the crypt below us, while this part of the building was being constructed, and his shrine would have been there. Now, at the time of the dissolution of the monasteries, that's when communities like the ones that was founded here, the Benedictine community, was dissolved, and it was all destroyed. I don't know, some people might know the Hilary Mantel stories and the novels. The last in her trilogy has a wonderful description of the destruction from an imaginative point of view. But it's a great story of the destruction of the shrine.
So, Canon Andrew, when you walk into the cathedral, I'm immediately struck by the architecture. It really does have that wow factor. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about it?
What you see here in the Trinity Chapel is, ironically, a relatively new piece of the cathedral, actually, in terms of its whole history. It was Stephen Langton was Archbishop when all of this was being built for the place where the shrine was going to be built for St. Thomas. And so you can see this amazing, wonderful area that we have before us with many arches and the windows all around the chapel showing the stories of the life of St. Thomas. So on a bright day, it's alive with light. The greatest windows probably in the whole of Europe, actually, even better than Saint-Chapelle, we would argue, in Paris. And further on from that, we have the Chapel of the Corona, which was built a little bit later, which would have housed the top of the skull where St. Thomas was martyred. It's, as I say, a beautiful place, and now, as you see on a day like today, a place of actually great tranquility. Even though we get many, many visitors here, there's something about the quiet and the peace of this place that people enjoy as they contemplate, as they look up and they see the wonders of this building.
If somebody would like to come here and make pilgrimage, Canon Andrew, what would you have to say to them?
Well, I would really encourage you to do so. It's a place where we are here and we're a stable community and have been for all these many, many hundreds of years. And it's a place where people throughout their pilgrimages, physical or sometimes emotional in their own lives, know that there is that place of stability and solidity that they can find here. Just phone up the visits office here at the cathedral and we'll be able to support you and give you a blessing either at the beginning or the end of your journey.
That's fantastic. Canon Andrews, thank you so much for your time. I'm really looking forward to exploring and I'm really looking forward to hearing more about Thomas Becket.
Enjoy the rest of your day here.
Here I am. This is the famous place of the martyrdom where Thomas Becket lost his life, where he was murdered. And the attack was so brutal that apparently, as the story goes, when the four men burst through them doors behind me, made it over to Becket, when they struck him with the sword, it was so violent that the sword itself shattered on the rock. And amazingly, in 1982, Pope John Paul II came here in prayer himself to venerate Thomas Becket. What a rich place of history. What a tragic event. But as we're about to find out, that is not the end of the story. Many miracles and healings have been attributed to Thomas Becket. So, Cressida, I hear that you are the expert on Thomas Becket. And of course, he's very famous. He's known all around the world. Would you mind sharing with me maybe some of his early life and how he became Archbishop here in Canterbury?
Certainly. Well, Thomas Becket was born to Norman parents, so parents of French origins, in London in about the year 1120. His father was a merchant and he was born in Cheapside, which is quite near where St. Paul's Cathedral stands.
And then his life, and did he initially want to be a cleric, or what happened there?
So he received a good education and he became, in effect, an administrator. And he became quite close to King Henry II and entered King Henry II's household. So certainly he had no designs to become an archbishop at that stage, but he entered the household of King Henry II and became his chancellor.
And then, so as a Catholic priest then, King Henry II nominated him then as Archbishop of Canterbury.
Well, he moved from that position within the household as chancellor, and he did succeed a man called Theobald as Archbishop of Canterbury.
Okay, amazing. And so then his ministry here, what was that like?
Becket's time as Archbishop was quite disturbed because fairly soon after becoming Archbishop, his relations with the King, Henry II, deteriorated. So much of the time while he was Archbishop of Canterbury, he was actually in exile in France because the relations between the two men were so challenging that Thomas Becket had to leave these shores.
Okay, wow. And so that's very interesting that the king who appointed him, the relationship then became quite fractious. And of course, it's known all around the world, and I've read about the death of Becket. I've read literature, I've watched movies, and of course, Cressida, we are here at the site where he was assassinated. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about that?
Thomas Becket was here in the cathedral on the 29th of December, 1170. He had returned earlier that month from France, from exile. Relations between him and the king's allies, if you like, were very tense. So Thomas Becket came into the cathedral, but he was pursued by 4 knights and murdered Thomas Becket on this very spot.
right here. It's amazing to be at the spot where he was actually murdered. And what was the fallout of that after that?
There were shockwaves.
Yeah.
Canterbury was in shock, but the shock spread rapidly throughout the realm and indeed throughout the continent. Swiftly, Thomas Becket was made a saint, so he became a saint in 1173. And that was partly because very soon after the murder, people came here on pilgrimage, but also seeking healing, and there were miracles reported at Thomas Becket's tomb, which was then in the crypt of the cathedral.
So Cressida, that's fantastic, because my next stop is actually to go down and explore the stained glass windows which represent the healings and the miracles. I just want to thank you so much for your time.
That's a pleasure.
So Leonie, thank you so much for bringing me here to this spot. I have absolutely beautiful view here in front of me. So I understand after Becket died, after he was murdered, a lot of people used to make pilgrimage here.
Yes, and it happened actually quite quickly. It was a very traumatic time for the cathedral, for the priory, for the monks themselves. They just lost their leader in a violent attack. And because it was a politically motivated murder, people did not know what was going to happen. But very soon, miracles started to be reported of people being healed by the touch of the blood or by touching garments of the Archbishop. And so despite all the anxiety over what's going to happen next year, people started creeping into the cathedral to be close to the body of what they began to see as a saint.
This must have given people great hope coming here, and then these miraculous events happened.
Absolutely. Thomas Becket became known as the healer of the worthy good. So if you behaved yourself, you had good chances to get healed.
I'll keep that in mind.
We know so much about those miracles that happened, particularly in the early sort of first 4 to 10 years after the murder, because the monks wrote them down.
Oh.
So we have hundreds of accounts of eyewitnesses telling the story of people who came here and either experienced healing on the spot in the cathedral or came back later on or reported back later on about healing that happened after they came. And so the exciting thing is, of course, these people were real people. We know their names, we know their professions, we know where they came from. It's not made up, they actually existed.
Wow, and it's well documented. And of course, we have some of these miracles depicted right here over your shoulder. Would you mind sharing about these beautiful stained glass windows that depict the healings and the miracles that you've just described?
So they were made between about 1190 to 1220. Quite a longish period of time, but they use stories that were recorded in the first few years after the murder. And really, when you think about it, they were finished within the living memory of some of the people who are even depicted in these windows.
Any interesting stories?
Oh yeah, lots of them. I mean, there are accidents at work where somebody half hacks off his leg and, you know, everybody around him goes, "Ooh, this is disgusting, what do we do?" And of course, he then prays to Becket and his wound is healed overnight almost. We have a wonderful story in this window behind us of a woman who came from France to find healing for her mental illness. And she did. We have people whose children drown in the river and are revived, people with intestinal problems, people who have the plague in the house and almost all of their servants die. You know, it's everybody, all of society is depicted here.
Wow, it's really fascinating to think that this was a site of such horror and such sadness, but then it sounds like it's been a site of life, of resurrection, because such a traumatic event led people to come here to pay tribute in veneration of Thomas Becket, and then they were filled with life through the miracles that were performed. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm really looking forward to studying these windows now.
Thank you.
The theme that has really struck me today is, of course, the courage of Thomas Becket. His last words as they plunged their swords into him were, "For the name of Jesus and for the protection of the church, I'm ready to embrace death." See, courage is not the absence of fear. It's moving forward despite the fear. This is very important and can be applied in our own lives. Like Thomas Becket, the martyrs give us the ultimate demonstration of courage. Greater love has no more than this, to lay down one's life for his friends. But to be a martyr in death, one must already be a martyr in life. That is, if we want to be ready to give our life for Christ at the final moment, we must be already giving it to him now. My friends, thank you so much for joining me on this pilgrimage here to Canterbury Cathedral. My name is Niall McDonagh, and from everyone here at Shalom World, God bless you all.